Section 7 of Stops, or How to Punctuate, a practical handbook for writers and students. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Clarica
and Stepheather.
Stops, or How to Punctuate by Paul Allardyce. Section 7. The mark of exclamation. Rule 34. The mark of exclamation is placed after interjections and words used interjectionally, that is to say, after expressions of an exclamatory nature. The exclamations may be one of surprise, or of fear, or the utterance of a wish, a command, or a prayer.
Example 1. Quick! Mark of exclamation. Begone! Mark of exclamation. Out of my sight! Mark of exclamation. Example 2. Heaven preserve us! Mark of exclamation. Example 3. Would that better feelings moved them! Mark of exclamation. Example 4. O Lord, be merciful unto me, a sinner! Mark of exclamation.
Interjections are not always followed immediately, and are sometimes not allowed at all, by a mark of exclamation. No rule can be given more precise than this. 1. That we should not insert a mark of exclamation immediately after an interjection, unless we should make a distinct pause after it in speaking, and 2. That no mark of exclamation is to be used at all unless the exclamatory nature of the sentence is more or less strongly marked. It is useful to notice the difference between "oh" and "oh." The former is used only before the vocative case, and never has a mark of exclamation, or indeed any point, placed immediately after it.
Example 5. Alas! Mark of exclamation. All our hopes are blasted. Lo, he cometh! Mark of exclamation. O Dido, Dido, most unhappy Dido! Mark of exclamation. Unhappy wife, still more unhappy widow! Mark of exclamation. Oh, do not reckon that old debt to my account today! Mark of exclamation.
Rule 35. The mark of exclamation is placed after sentences which, though interrogatory in form, are really exclamatory.
Example 1. How could he have been so foolish? Mark of exclamation. Example 2. And shall he never see an end to this state of things? Mark of exclamation. Shall he never have the due reward of labor? Mark of exclamation. Shall unsparing taxation never cease to make him a miserable, dejected being, a creature famishing in the midst of abundance, fainting, expiring with hunger's feeble moan, surrounded by a caroling creation? Mark of exclamation.
This rule might be put in another way by saying that a mark of exclamation, and not a point of interrogation, is placed after what are called rhetorical questions, or statements made more striking by being put in the form of questions. They are not asked for the sake of receiving a direct answer, and are in reality exclamations. Since all rhetorical questions are not thus punctuated, the point of interrogation is sometimes more effective. The sentences quoted under Rule 31 would lose much of their force if marks of exclamation were used. In each case we must decide whether the sentence strikes us most as a question or as the expression of emotion. Rule 36. The mark of exclamation is sometimes placed after an ironical statement.
Example 1. They did not fight tens against thousands. They did not fight for wives and children, but for lands and plunder. Therefore they are heroes! Mark of exclamation.
The mark of exclamation keeps up the semblance of seriousness which is of the essence of irony. Rule 37. The mark of exclamation is placed after the statement of some absurdity.
Example 1. He has been laboring to prove that Shakespeare's plays were written by Bacon! Mark of exclamation. To him the parliamentary vote was a panacea for all human ills, and the ballot box an object as sacred as the Holy Grail to a knight of the Round Table! Mark of exclamation.
The same reason applies to its use after such sentences as after ironical statements. Rule 38. The mark of exclamation may be placed after any impressive or striking thought.
Example 1. The angel of death has been abroad throughout the land. You may almost hear the very beating of his wings! Mark of exclamation.
It may be doubted whether the mark of exclamation is, in such cases, of any great service, for the impressiveness of a sentence ought to appear in the sentence itself, or to be given it by its context. There is a real danger, as the style of many people shows, in thinking that punctuation is intended to save the trouble of careful composition. In putting the mark after pure exclamations, usage is more or less uniform; with regard to impressive sentences, we are left entirely to our own discretion. Rule XXXIX. When a sentence contains more than one exclamation, sometimes the mark of exclamation is placed only after the last, sometimes it is placed after each of them, the test being whether or not they are in reality, as well as in form, several exclamations.
Example 1. Though all are thus satisfied with the dispensations of nature, how few listen to her voice! Mark of exclamation. How few follow her as a guide! Mark of exclamation. Example 2. What a mighty work he has thus brought to a successful end! With what perseverance, what energy, with what fruitfulness of resource! Mark of exclamation.
End of section 7.